So I just got back from a mission trip. We went to serve in an orphanage in Peru, and it was a life-changing experience. I know a lot of people who go on mission trips say that those are life-changing experiences, and they are. This one for me was life-changing in a different way than you might expect, and so that's the conversation me and Jake are going to have today. We're going to talk about the trip. We're going to talk about what it meant for me, for my family. We took the whole family, all the kids. It was incredible. And also what it might mean for you, for your family, for your walk, for your life. And so with that, appreciate you being here as always. And Jake, how are you?
Yeah, good man. It's been awesome hearing about your trip. I've heard parts and pieces of it. I personally have not had the opportunity to go on a mission trip yet. And I would love to learn more about it and figure out what's the purpose behind it, why and what it did for you and what it did for the kids there. And so yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you got to share.
Yeah, so we went down to Peru, flew into Lima, and then flew to Cusco, which is wild by the way. You're at like 11,000 feet elevation, and a couple people got altitude sickness, so that was fun. And then we drove
Yeah.
from there, beat like 2.5 hours to the middle of the mountains, and
Mm.
there's an orphanage there. There's an orphanage, there's a school, and it's so interesting, and really what spoke to me the most throughout the week as I processed through what we experienced was, we go on these mission trips as Westerners so often, and we kind of think like, oh, we're gonna go serve these people, and we feel maybe a little bit bad for them, and we want to help them, which is all great. And yet I think oftentimes what we experience is like, oh, actually, these folks are serving me more than, or at least as much as I'm serving them, and that was certainly the case in this trip. To give you an idea, I think they said about 200 and something students at this orphanage in the middle of nowhere in the mountains in Peru, and about 50 or so of those are orphans, right? So their parents have either died or abandoned them, or for many of them, it's just not a safe home environment, or they might be an environment where their parents literally can't afford them, and so they basically turn them over to the state, and then the state says, "Well, there's this place that's really good at serving these kinds of kids," and they send them there. Um, and it's a typical thing where you go and you're thinking as you pull into the grounds like, wow, these buildings half look like they might be not very safe to stay in, and
Yeah.
there was a point where like we're flushing the toilets with buckets of water. Um, the conditions are so different than what we're used to, and yet, man, these kids and even the people that work there and the people that serve them, they have a joy and they have a hope and they have a love and they have a community that honestly, I just think that most of us don't even experience in this great life that we live here, in America or in the West or, in these other developed countries. And so for me, I thought what was so powerful was you think about like you're pursuing a career, you're pursuing making more money, you're pursuing, I don't know, finding the right spouse, you're pursuing all these things, and one of the key takeaways that I got was, what is the point at the end of it all? Like, if we rolled it all the way up to the essence of like, what are we really looking for as we pursue the things that we pursue in life? And when I was here, what I realized is like, oh, these people are living it. Like they don't have any of the
Mm.
things that I'm trying to get or that we're trying to achieve or that we're pursuing. And yet what they have is the thing that I think we all actually want when it's all said and done, which is like they have authentic connection. They have a community of people and they love each other, right? Like
Yeah.
every meal that we ate was prepared from scratch by the people that work there and live there, and that's how the kids eat every
Mm.
day. And every time it was like there's 25 of us or whatever eating at this super long table in the guy's house who runs the orphanage, and his family and
Yeah.
some of the kids are like preparing the food, and we're having conversation, and I just thought like, wow, this is ultimately like the pinnacle of at least as I can tell, of what we're actually longing for, and yet all the things that we mostly do every day, not that they're not important, but, like, they're not in pursuit of that. They're in pursuit of, like,
Mm,
"Oh, we think if we have a better house, we're gonna get that thing that we desire," or, "If we have more money, we're gonna have that thing that we long for," or, "If we have more followers, then we're gonna," and it's like, well, no. Really, I think what I saw was, man, I'm experiencing something that I haven't seen at scale, or at, like, the kinda scale that I experienced in this orphanage in my whole life here, and it was
mm.
just incredible. So, I can certainly share more, but, when I think through what was the takeaway, what really jumped out at me, it was like, "Oh, these folks live in conditions that most of us would consider, terrible, frankly, and yet they walk around with, like, a love for each other and a connection with each other and a simplicity and a joy that most of us don't experience on a daily basis,
Mm.
let alone almost ever, and I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear. I think it's really interesting because I like I mentioned, I've never been on a mission trip like this, and when I think of it, like my wife and I we're moving in a month and a half, and for us, we're looking and we're like we've been having conversations about setting our priorities for what's important for us in our house when we move. And it's like, we want to make sure we have double sinks and we want to make sure we have a nice backyard. We want to make, and it's like all of these things that's on our list. And then I hear what you just mentioned about these kids. And it's like, it just makes me go, like, they clearly think that there's things that are important to them. It's like my wife and I are talking about these things that are important to us, like the double sinks, right? And it's just interesting, like you said. It's I feel like we get so caught up in that light. When you look at those kids, if you could highlight like maybe top three, top four things that you saw that was really important to them, like or just the community there, because like one of the couple of things that I just wrote down when you were saying that is like I said, community was really important to them. Love and just like sitting around the table and eating, like that is just such a raw and unfiltered emotion that I think about. And I was hoping that you could share kind of like what were the top things that were important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can necessarily answer, like, from their perspective what the most important things were, but what I can say is, I like to think of if what's all the way upstream, and so a lot of my reflection time was thinking, "Okay, what is it in us that says, we gotta have the double sinks," right? And I think it's that we think if I have the double sinks, things will be a little easier, a little less friction, a little more comfortable, and then I'll feel a certain way, right? I think like
Mm,
so much of our human behavior is predicated around what can I do that's going to make me feel the way I desire to feel? So another example would be like, oh, I want to make $1 million a year. It's like, well, why do you think you want to make $1 million a year? Well, because I think if I can make $1 million a year, then I can do the things that make me feel the way that I desire to feel. And so much of our motivation is what can I do to help me feel this desired feeling that I'm after. And as an example, like then we go to this place and they don't have any of those things. They're not pursuing any of those
right,
things. And I'm not
right.
saying that those things aren't important in some way, but like the I experienced the feeling, right? Same with when I went to Las Vegas a couple weeks ago and I'm around these guys and I haven't done anything like that in a long time. And it's like something clicked in my brain where I just realized, oh, it's not that the things that I've been pursuing are bad, but the
Mm,
things that I've been pursuing aren't actually gonna give me the feeling that I desire, the longing I desire, the thing that humans as humans, we ultimately want the most. I already actually have access to those things. And that's what I saw
mm,
in these folks is like, yeah, they're still educating the kids because it's important. They want the kids to leave this place and go be productive in society and go have a better life. And yet at the same
mm,
time, the connection and the love that these people were sharing every single day, the need for each other, the reliance on each other, the teamwork, if you will, the shared mission, the shared struggle, the shared challenges. Like there were no egos, and I'm sure there are, but like from our experience, we didn't. There wasn't a bunch of like, hey, this person's trying to one up this person. They were all working together to go in a direction. And what I got to experience as an outsider, and this is where I say like, I think they served us as much or more than we served them. Is like I got to see that. Oh man, all these things that I'm pursuing so that I can feel this way, I already have access to. But all the things I'm
Mm.
pursuing, if I'm not really careful, will actually distract me from the thing that I desire the most in the first place, which is we desire love and we desire connection. And most of what we do on our in our daily lives, right, in some way, shape, or form is trying to actually separate us or push us farther away from being connected and loving.
Mm. No, that's really good. I think one question I have for you is one thing that we've talked about a lot offline and online is this idea that enterprise fuels a lot of these endeavors, right? Um, like I'm guessing the where you were was a nonprofit organization, and oftentimes, it's funded by, donations and stuff like that. And even you being able to take a week or 10 days and go and do that and with your whole family and be there and serve and do something like that. Is that also kind of rooted in that same idea of developing community and developing that? Or the other side of the coin is like, okay, make money or provide value so that you can do that.
Yeah, it's really interesting because that was one of my other big takeaways was alls I could sit there and think was, wow, the solution to these other problems that we experience here, right? Like water that doesn't always work and buildings that aren't necessarily very safe. Those problems are solved through enterprise, right? Those problems are
Mm,
solved through creation, through prosperity, through abundance, through multiplication. And so this is where I think
good.
like so often it becomes an either or, right? Like there's so many Christians who are just anti money, and I look at it and I go, I don't know how you could read your Bible. And I mean, I know you could read your Bible and you could cherry pick a couple of verses to become anti money or anti abundance or anti prosperity. And there will probably be people who either watch or listen to this and they twist it to say that what I'm saying is like, oh, I believe in the prosperity gospel. No, but I believe that God is a God of abundance. God is a God of multiplication.
Mm,
And God wants us to serve each other by creating things to solve each other's problems, because I don't think God inherently wants all of his people or a whole bunch of his people or any of his people in his ideal world, like in the kingdom in eternity. I don't think anybody's going to be living in squalor. Okay. So my point being is that I'm thinking as I'm watching all this is, and it takes me back to like the story of the Israelites. They were slaves for 400 years. They come out and God's like, I'm going to take you to this land, and this land is full of prosperity. That's basically what he's telling them. And then within probably 400 more years, they had had so much prosperity that they had forgotten about God. And so then what we do is we say, oh, we're going to gravitate towards one of the two poles instead of realize that, like in this instance, man, these kids showed us love and connection. That's what we're actually all after. And yet we don't want to
mm,
stop there. This is something that I sort of banter with people who I'm close to in the faith community all the time. I go, great, so you're saved. I'm saved. That's awesome. Now what? Right now,
right.
that should be the beginning of us going out
Mm,
into the world and helping to show the world what the kingdom actually looks like. And so what would that look like
yeah.
with these kids? It's like you have this thing that most people they desire more than anything. They just don't know it. You have love, you have connection, you have community, you have authentic relationship. And yet you also live in these environments that the dream, or maybe not the dream, but the desire would be for you to go out and be able to go create and solve some of those other surface level problems, if you want to call them that, so that we can continue to elevate as we go. But as we continue and as we elevate, don't lose sight of the fact that you already have the thing that we all desire the most. And see, that's where I think we get it a little bit screwed up in America, right? Is like we've we've taken the thing that we want most, the thing that's the most important, and we've put it underneath the things that
Mhm.
we pursue, trying to get to the thing that we already have access to. And so it's kind of like we had done a conversation at one point about working to rest versus working
Mm.
from rest. It's kind of the
Right.
same thing. Or people will say, um, I'm not doing works to be saved. I'm doing works from my salvation. And that's how I look at
Mhm.
this. Is like, yeah, we're not going to try. And I think this is the thing. A lot of Westerners, we try and go into these places and we try and say, oh, you guys don't have all the stuff we have, so we want to help you have all the stuff we have. Like that's going to
Right.
solve your problem. And I'm not saying that. I'm saying like, no, actually, they've solved the problem. That's probably a more important problem that we need to solve, which is how do you love each other and have authentic community? And then we can
Right.
go in and say, hey, we want to help you guys solve these other problems that you're wrestling through, but we don't want you to sacrifice the thing that you already have that we actually that like it's the better thing. I think of Martha and Mary in the Bible. And Martha, she's like cleaning the dishes and she's, she's working hard and she's doing this. And Mary is just sitting at Jesus's feet. And Martha's like,
Mm.
she's mad about it. And Jesus looks at
Mhm.
Martha and goes, well, actually, Mary is doing the better thing. And it's a picture
Right.
to me of, hey, pretty buildings and running water and air conditioning. Not, those things are not bad. That's like Martha working in the kitchen. They're just not as good as sitting at Jesus's feet. They're just not as good as what these people already have that we're trying to get through these things that we're creating and building, as opposed to creating and building those things from the thing that we already desire, that we want the most, that these folks that we went and served for a week seem to already have.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think for me, I'm sitting here and listening to you, and I'm trying to think of, ways that I can take these principles that you're talking about and applying them in my day to day. Because that's really what we hope to do from here, right? Is like clearly had you learned something from these people. You learned something from the people running the orphanage, and then you learned something from the kids, and it's I guess the question for you, and maybe you can clarify this for me, is like, how are you going forward with this? Because maybe that'll help me understand, like, hearing, gleaming something from the outside is like, how would you go forward? Take these skills, take these things that you've learned, and apply them to your day tomorrow or next week.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things when we moved to Florida that I said is I'm going to purposefully be more intentional about connecting, being relational, going and meeting people, and I've done that, right? And I've had probably more fruitful experiences in the last however long it's been, 7 months, than in the 3.5 or the 3 years I lived in Montana. And
Yeah.
I think part of the reason why this one spoke to me so loudly is because if you think about it, like I'm a prime example where I love my family, I'm connected to my family, we're very close, we have great relationships. And those have always been my people. And I've always been like, I'm gonna work hard, I'm gonna provide, I'm gonna do what I need to do as a father and a husband, and this is my community. And it's like I never necessarily said this out loud, but I think the implication in my life was, okay, well, in order to do that well, I'm just gonna have to sacrifice a little bit over here on like friends or broader connection or broader community. And then the last, two things I've been to, and it's been like leading up, right? I'm in this Bible study and we've been doing some small group and we found a church that we really are enjoying. And as I've been more intentional about being more communal, my life has started to change. And then it's like it's culminated in these last two things. I went to Las Vegas, I hung out with 20 something guys. I haven't literally done that since I played college baseball, right? And then I go and
Right.
I serve on this mission trip with these kids, and I just go, "Oh, that's what I've been missing." I've been trying to like engineer my life in such a way that like if I can just check these boxes or if I can get to this point then X, Y, or Z,
Right.
missing in some ways the actual reality of like actually no, the whole point of your life, the whole purpose of like if you think about I sent this to you a while back where if I do what I call a reverse roll up on Christianity, which is like you take all the crazy amount of details and options and what is Christianity and what is it represented by and what's right and what's wrong and all the stuff that you can get overwhelmed by, and you go, okay, but like if we just rolled it up to what is the essence of Christianity, like the best I can tell is the essence of Christianity is relationship. God created us for relationship because God's a relational God. That's why he's three in one.
Mm.
And so then it's convicting in my spirit. And to answer your question, the takeaway for me is like I'm just going to keep doing more of what I'm doing instead of focusing so much on like, hey, I got to achieve these goals and I got to like try and control my environment by, checking these boxes and doing, these things that I need to make sure I'm doing. I'm going to say like if I'm not living my life in a way where real authentic relationship, community and love is at the center, right? With God and with others of my life and of what I'm
Mm.
pursuing, then I'm doing something wrong. Because all those things I'm doing because I think that they'll lead to me feeling or experiencing life in a certain way, when the reality is the ability to do that is already here, if that makes sense.
Mhm. No, no, that does. I think, it makes me think for time for me. Um, when I initially got baptized, it's funny that you bring up the relationship side of it because it's like, well, before I got baptized, I thought, oh man, when I get baptized, it's gonna be smooth sailing after this, right? Like it's gonna everything's gonna get shown to me. I'm gonna just like all my problems are gonna be fixed, and you know, it's after since I've gotten baptized, it's like that was the start. That was the first. That was like I stepped up to the starting line of the race, and I think for me, I think a relationship is a really good way of putting it in my faith. And, I think to add on to your point as well of like the way that it's gotten easier is because of the community that I'm in. It's because of the people that are around me that are walking me through this with me, have been even through it before themselves, have that part of community that I've never really been able to relate to before. Um and it's really interesting that you saw that in this orphanage in the middle of the mountains in the middle of Peru, right? Um, that's really was sitting in front of my face all along. I'm sitting here going, trying to figure out my next job and where I'm going to live and what am I going to do and yeah, it's really cool to see. It's like when you really break it down. I've always it's so funny. Even when I was a kid, I would talk about wanting genuine human connection and how you know it's becoming more and more kind of scarce. I guess for going forward, maybe you can speak to this more of like you went on the trip to Vegas and you kind of discussed that before. Um, you also are talking about the past since you moved to Florida, you've really plugged in, you've really and been intentional about building community, and that was taught like that kind of aspect was confirmed to you in Peru. I guess for somebody that maybe is feeling like that idea of building community is hard for them, like how did you start out doing that when you first moved? Like how were you intentional about building relationships? How were you intentional about building community around you? And what for a guy like me that's about to move into an area where we really only know a few people, like how would we go about doing that?
Yeah, those are good questions. Excuse me. The first thing that we did was when we moved to Montana, and I've mentioned this before, but we're coming out of COVID. We're tired of the craziness in the state of Washington,
Yeah.
and then there's also this part of us that's like, hey, we're gonna do some homesteading because we don't know where the world's going, right? So there's like
Right.
underneath the layers, there's a little bit of like fear, right? Um,
Right.
we wouldn't have called it that, but at the end of the day, like a lot of times preppers will call it preparation when really it's just
Hmm.
disguising fear. And I'm not saying that there's not a
Right.
time and a place. So that's a different conversation for a different day. But we
Right.
lived on 20 acres, and when we decided to move again, one of the first things we did is we just said, "Hey, listen, we're going to move our kids to a brand new place, completely new, don't know anybody." For the second time in 4 years. And the thing we're
Right.
going to do different this time is we're going to go live in a neighborhood. We're going to go live where there's people. We're not going to try and
Right.
isolate ourselves to protect ourselves or prepare for God knows what. We're going to go out and we're going to like not be afraid of anything in life. We're gonna immerse ourselves around people, and we're gonna be communal. And so that was a practical first step is go choose we chose to live close to people. And yeah, there's an HOA, and yeah, there's problems with that and all those things, but it's like, but if the point is really relationship, community, and love, it's a lot harder to do that when, or at least for us, when we live 15 miles from anything else. And so that
Right.
was the first. And then I would say the second is just actually saying yes to things, right? There's always, like, for me, that's my point is there's always work to be done. There's always another project to finish. And then in your brain, you're like, oh, well, when I just get this next project finished, then I can be relational. Because when I get this next
Right.
project finished, then I'll feel the way I wanna feel. When the reality is like, actually, you're gonna get the 2 sinks or you're gonna finish the project, and if you don't have community and you're not relational, you're actually gonna feel the exact same way. You're just gonna look for the next thing that you think you need to feel the way you wanna feel when the way you wanna feel actually isn't gonna be solved by any of those things. It's by actually saying yes to people saying, "Hey, I know it's Saturday and you have a project to finish, but would you guys like to come over for dinner? Or would you guys like to, whatever." So that's the second thing. The third thing I would say is I just have been going out looking for opportunities. So I'm
Was it
actually out there looking for what are things that I could say yes to that people are offering, in Las Vegas. Like, I
right?
met this guy on X, whatever it was, a year ago, and I saw one day that he posted he's doing this retreat, and I'm like, "Oh, I've never done something like that. I'm trying to be more intentional about being relational. It's expensive, but I'm just gonna say yes because I think that
Yeah.
I've tried to get to where I wanna go in life by, like, accomplishing all these other things, and something has still
Mm.
felt like it was missing. What I haven't tried to do is be that intentional and that motivated and that serious about, like, meeting more people and connecting with more people, because
Right.
I think, like Jamie Winship always says, your identity is given to you by God and confirmed in community. Well, it's really hard to get the confirmation from the community if you're not engaged in and a part of and immersed in community. And so for me, like, selfishly, a part of it, if I'm really honest, is like, dang, I wanna go be around people so I can just be who I am and hopefully operate in the gifts that God's given me, so that, like, my identity and who I am and what I'm called to and what God wants me to participate in is confirmed because I'm actually doing the
Right.
thing that he created me to do, which is, like, be a part of a team.
Right. Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, it's really funny that I can relate super well to the move to Montana. We basically did the same thing. We were escaping the craziness of our hometown. And that move really did something similar in us is we we're hoping to do make that same decision as, and maybe it doesn't require a move, right? We're just putting an idea in our head of like, okay, we're moving to Florida in a month and a half. We're going to be really intentional about this. Um, to quote the pastor, we watched a online version of a sermon from Will, your friend, and one of the things he talked about in his sermon was thinking of your community as like a huddle.
Mhm.
And the term he used was like, okay, who's in your huddle? When you huddle up and you're getting ready to go, you're like, who's in your huddle? And
Mhm.
I've just been simmering on that a little bit. And, it kind of went back to what you're saying. The other thing that I was thinking about is like, whose huddle am I in? Like, who am I intentionally pouring into and who's intentionally pouring into me? And it's like, I think of it in football terms. It's like, if the quarterback's not in your huddle, then how do you know what play you're gonna run, right? But vice versa, if you're not in the huddle, how do you know what plays
Right.
being run outside of that, right? And it's really interesting concept that you're bringing, and I think it's really important to be intentional with that, and it's actually really hard. I feel like being a young guy now, it's like part of me feels like, oh man, it's kind of weird, but like it's just one thing that you've told me all the time is like your your biggest accomplishment is behind your biggest fear, right? And and I think that's like for a lot of people, their fear is growing heavier and heavier. Is like, man, I don't want to be weird and just reach out to this guy or this couple, this people I know, and be like, hey, you want to get together and meet up and go on a trip to Vegas. It's like that's such a it's sad to say, but it's kind of going away a little bit. I think it's like with the digital world we live in, it's so easy to go hop on AI or in a chat and be like, okay, talk to them about something and feel accomplished, and still feel like the room is empty afterwards. Um, so I think it's really interesting that you bring that point of just being intentional and saying yes. I think that hit for me is just saying yes to things, saying yes to the people that invite you over to dinner, saying yes to the opportunities you get to be around people. Um, and I mean, for me personally, I see that all the time. I've always thought, I work in construction. I work at a general contractor, and all the time I spend all day spending around 30, 40, 50, 60 year old guys. And a lot of them are typical construction guys. And it's like sometimes I get really irritated. I'm like, man, I don't want to be around these people anymore. But recently I really like being around people, even if they're like old honorary guys. Like they're just like, it's fun. It's an opportunity for me to build more community like that. So I think that's really good.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Will's sermon, which after Will gave that sermon, I was at church that week, and Will,
Mm.
for those watching or listening, is actually the guy who runs the organization that we went to Peru with, and it's an amazing organization. It's very unique. It's part of what is so intriguing to me about what they do. It's called Endurance Leadership. We'll put a link in the description wherever you're watching or listening to this, because I think they're doing a great job, great work. But I'm also gonna put a link to the sermon. It's online. After Will gave that sermon, I walked up to him and I said, I've probably listened to thousands of sermons, but I think that was the best sermon I have ever heard. And
Yeah.
and maybe it was just the time, in my life and what God knew I needed to hear. But I just really think that there's something to exactly what he talked about, exactly what you're talking about and I'm talking about, which is like, yes, people can go and they can chat with AI and they can try and solve their problems with AI because again, they think that if they can get an answer to this question, then they're going to feel the way they desire to feel. And I think what I'm learning in my life is that the feeling that we're after, the feeling that it's a longing, it's like a well inside of us that's trying to bubble out. It does not go away in any other way than loving each other and being connected. And it's like I've been experiencing it in a way that I never have before. And so this is my point. When you have that true, genuine love and connection, then even if you live in an orphanage in the middle of the mountains in Peru, you have the very thing that your soul and your spirit desires above all else. And yet you could live in the biggest, most fancy mansion on the most beautiful beach in the world or in America or whatever. And if you don't have love and connection and community and people who have your back and people who love you, there's this well, this spring inside of you that's still going to feel like it needs to bubble out. And that's what I learned. That's what I've been learning. That's what I've been seeing. That's what I'm gonna pursue above all else is just like, "Oh, I got it now." The Bible, God didn't give me the Bible so I could just have a bunch of stuff in my brain that I could, like, share with people to make them think that I'm smart. He gave me the Bible
Right.
because He wanted to know that He created me because He wants to love me and He wants to connect with me, and then He wants to do that with you, and then He wants that us to do that with each other. We are all connected.
Mm.
And so we have created this environment where we've distracted ourselves, right? From the very things
Mm.
that we were created for, that we long for. And so for me, my pursuit is going to be that. My pursuit, yes, do I
Mm.
still want to learn? Do I still want to build stuff? Do I still want to try cool things? Yes, but only to the degree that they serve the actual thing that I was created for, which is to be connected to you and to somebody else, and for us to be connected to each other, and for us to actually care about each other, to love each other, to sacrifice for each other. Because if we can do that, man, we can do anything.
Right. No, that's so good. I think it's maybe this is a selfish way of thinking of it, but it's like I really, really appreciate when I have a buddy of mine or a family member call me and they go, "Hey, man, I need you for something." Like I love that feeling. I love feeling like there's something that I can provide for somebody else. And you know what I also love? I also love feeling stuck and then calling on somebody else to be like, "Hey, man, I need help with this," right?
Right.
Like, and being able to move forward, it's really hard to do that if you're in an empty room, right? Or if you're talking with Claude or, a ChatGPT or whatever, right? It's really hard to have somebody come and help you move, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's so interesting, and I think it's so good what you're talking about. I think that um, if you really broke it down to the essence of it, it's like I think that's what it comes down to too. It's just, feeling like in a community of being able to be a united front, united force in whatever endeavor. It's like I talk about multiplication. Like, yeah, I have a problem. I can call on four guys that I know and be like, "Hey, can you help me figure this out?" And it's like, okay, well now there's five instead of one. It's like now that problem stands no chance, right? So
Right.
I think it's good.
Well, that's awesome. I think we could wrap there. If you're
Yeah.
still watching, listening, thanks for being here. Thanks for checking out what we have to say. This is something that for me it really jumped out at me. It spoke to me. My desire is I hope that it will speak to you as well. I hope that it will help you with whatever you might be going through. And if it did, we'd love to hear about it in the comments. If there was something in here that we shared that you think, oh man, my sister or my aunt or my mom or somebody needs to hear that, would you just share it with them? Because I think ultimately, like we want to speak from the heart. We want to speak towards things that really are chewing on our spirit. And for me, this has been one that I think's been in progress for a long time. And so it's meaningful to me. I hope that it helps you and or some people that you know. So again, thanks for being here and we'll see you next time.